We
Got it.
are.
All right. Thank you, Sean.
Go ahead.
Thank you, everyone, for joining CB14's Community Environment, Cultural Affairs, and Economic Development Committee meeting, taking place Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025 at 6:35 p.m. online via WebEx. And our first presenter will hopefully join us, but our second agenda item will be Dominique Jean-Louis from the Center for Brooklyn History. So please take it away.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for inviting me. I'm really delighted to get to share a little bit more about the work that we do at the Center for Brooklyn History. So if it's all right with you all, I'd love to share my screen. I'm hoping that shows up for everyone. Oh, wrong link. Slideshow, please. Can I just get a verbal confirmation that that's showing up for folks?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So, yes, I'd like to introduce myself first of all to give you a sense of who's presenting to you to this evening. My name is Dominique Jean-Louis, and I'm the Chief Historian at the Center for Brooklyn History. And I always am really delighted to be able to share information about a resource that's completely free, completely welcome to all. I'd like to say you've already paid for this service. Your tax dollars support the Center for Brooklyn History, which is part of the Brooklyn Public Library system. And my task this evening is just to go over some of what we offer at CBH and how you might take advantage of it, and what your steps might be and how you might get involved. So I guess to start us off with a little bit of hopefully not too ancient history, you might be familiar with our building, our historic building over in Brooklyn Heights in the corner of Clinton and Pierpont as the Brooklyn Historical Society. So that's kind of our earlier iteration of what we were. So the Brooklyn Historical Society was originally founded as the Long Island Historical Society all the way back during the Civil War in 1863. And so as the Long Island Historical Society, they were much more concerned with, as you might expect, the history of the entirety of Long Island, including Brooklyn, but also including Queens and Nassau and Suffolk counties. And we're just interested in collecting history of all sorts, in fact, from across the world. And, you know, their founding also represents some of the, you know, class and racial distinctions of the era as well. So we're talking about wealthier, all white, all men people who founded this initial historical society. So this drawing that you see here is still what our building looks like today, but it was born in a very different era over when it was still the Long Island Historical Society. However, LIHS was renamed to the Brooklyn Historical Society in 1985. So after more than a century of being in use, of being this kind of private historical institution. And so it remained the Brooklyn Historical Society until 2020, at which point we joined the Brooklyn Public Library system, which you might be familiar with, BPL, as the more visible kind of public library system. Oh, sorry, my screen just went away. There we go. So the Brooklyn Public Library is, I like to say that it's among our borough's most democratic civic institutions. We serve patrons in every neighborhood, every walk of life. You might say that most Brooklynites live within a 10-minute walk from a BPL branch. We have more than 63 across the borough. So BPL was also established in the 19th century, going all the way back to 1896. It's one of our nation's largest public library systems, and we have more than 850,000 public library card holders, which is something we're quite proud of, especially representing Brooklyn's more than 2.7 million residents. So in 2020, the Brooklyn Public Library and the Long Island Historical Society decided to merge, and that merging creates the Center for Brooklyn History. So that merger represents quite a few different things for the future of both institutions, now merged as kind of a single institution. On the one hand, That means that all of the history and all of the holdings, the archival holdings, the special research collections that used to live at the Brooklyn Historical Society are now made accessible to everyone via the Brooklyn Public Library. We do our best to maximize accessibility in all of our collections. So sometimes, as you might imagine, that means digitizing things, that means our building being free for everyone to enter. If you want to walk in, use the Wi-Fi, walk in, use the bathroom, that's totally fine. We hope you do. So this merger has meant that everything it is that we do in our building is now free, open to all 6 days a week. But on the other side, on kind of the research side, both the Brooklyn Public Library and the former Brooklyn Historical Society maintained separate research collections. But now, as a result of this merger, all of those collections, for the most part, are housed under one roof. So anyone that's curious about Brooklyn's history, and I'm very biased, but I think everyone should be, but curious about Brooklyn's history, we really are a one-stop shop for anyone who's interested in researching their building, researching family history, or the papers of particular individuals or organizations or block associations or what have you within Brooklyn. You really now have a one-stop shop. We're going to talk in just a minute about what some of our collections look like. But as someone who, I studied Brooklyn as part of my doctoral dissertation, and this was before the merger, and I certainly got used to bopping back and forth between the Central Library on Grand Army Plaza and the former Brooklyn Historical Society in Brooklyn Heights. Can't tell you how useful it is to just have everything under one roof. So we're really delighted that now all of these collections are not only in the same place, but now stewarded with the mission of public service, which is really, of course, the mission of the Brooklyn Public Library. So everything at the core of what we do as a public history institution at the Center for Brooklyn History is really grounded in that idea of access, of service, of celebrating Brooklyn. But there's a lot of kind of nitty-gritty detail as to what that looks like, what we have to offer. If what we do is try to make it accessible, what is it that we're trying to make accessible? So I'm delighted to share a little bit more about what exactly our collections entail. And I'll just include a brief plug here for our Othmer Library. When we say our collections, most of them are housed here in this space, including the storage that's not here in this photo. But our entire building is a historic landmark, is a national landmark, but the Othmer Library you see in front of you now is an interior landmark, which is a little bit more rare. And as you can see, it's a really delightfully beautiful place, and anyone is welcome to use this space. Yes, of course, if you're doing research, but also this is just a really pretty space. So you're more than welcome to come in any day it's open. The Othmer Library is open Tuesday through Saturday, roughly 10 to 6. On some days it's 10 to 4. And you're welcome to come in. As long as you're, not disturbing other researchers. You can scroll your phone, you can supervise a sleeping baby, you can watch a Netflix movie with headphones in. We just really encourage people to see this space as their own and come use it however they'd like to, provided that it's quiet, provided that it's not interrupting anybody who's using our research collections. But speaking of those collections, we collect items that teach us about Brooklyn's history, that show us what Brooklyn has been, that give us clues about Brooklyn's future in a number of different ways. Sometimes that looks like collecting, storing, and offering oral histories. Sometimes that looks like purchasing. So actually, I'll share that the item in the top left-hand corner is actually a really remarkable piece in our collection. This is a deed of land, and it represents the first purchase of land in America, purchased by a Muslim individual. This is Anthony Van Saley, who is known for being one of the first Muslim kind of immigrants to what is now New York City. And in 2018, as part of their Muslims in Brooklyn research organization, their research project, the former Brooklyn Historical Society purchased this incredibly important deed, and anyone can now walk into our library and request to take a look at it. It's more than 400 years old, and it does such important work for telling us about the diversity that's always been here in Brooklyn, and especially amongst the religious diversity, our Muslim community that is now such an important part of Brooklyn's day-to-day life, but has also been such an important part of Brooklyn's history. I'll also give a shout out to this image you see in the lower right-hand corner. So the Brooklyn Daily Eagle is Brooklyn's kind of newspaper of note in the 19th century, from the 19th century through the mid-20th century. And we've actually digitized the entire thing. It's available online 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world, and it's keyword searchable. So at any day in from the 1830s or so to the 1950s or so, you can go and look up what was happening in Brooklyn. I can't tell you what a useful resource it is to have this daily log of what's happening in Brooklyn, what Brooklynites are talking about, what national issues have a local relevance, what local issues are breaking out into national news. I think there's not a day of my life that goes by that I don't take advantage of Brooklyn Newsstand, and especially the Brooklyn Daily Eagle. So our collection comes to us a variety of different ways, and we share it in a variety of different ways. The kind of official line you see here is we're a nationally recognized repository that comprises physical, born digital collections. So, it's the 21st century, it's 2025. Sometimes a donation looks like a thumb drive or a hard drive. So it's not just old documents and photographs. We're very much thinking about collecting as it's taking form in a digital age. Personal and family papers, manuscripts, books, business records, maps. We have so many fantastic maps, as well as books of maps, so atlases, artifacts, pieces of artwork, whether that's painting, sculpture, other kind of small pieces of ephemera, fashion, photographs. We have more than 300,000 photographs in our collection. There's just so much of a wealth of both ways to know about Brooklyn and types of objects that you could really sink your teeth into. So our collection is really wide-ranging in that way. And again, our mission is to make that accessible to everyone. So anyone, we do request that people make appointments with us just so we can make sure whatever it is you're interested in seeing is on site, is cleared to be handled, and is ready for you when you get here. But anyone can just walk in and see what it is that they might be interested in viewing from our collection. And we really welcome you to do things. Every single one of our archivists and our research librarians really just love putting things in people's hands. It's not about, we'll hold it and you can only look. These documents, these pieces of history have been collected and preserved so that you can handle them, that you can touch our, original copy of the Emancipation Proclamation, or you can, touch a real cannonball from the Revolutionary War. We have them so that you can have them. And so we really do encourage people to come in and look to see what might interest them. So this is here another roundup. You can also see there's an image here of Jackie Robinson, both information about Jackie, but also about the Dodgers more generally. And Ebbets Field is definitely one of the biggest research requests we get in our library, and we have lots to choose from. So if you are, or any Dodgers enthusiasts out there, we would be an excellent place to start and to gather some more information or do some research or just delight in the memories of when the Dodgers were still in Brooklyn. So, this is just a kind of rundown of some of the materials that you might be able to access. So speaking of accessing these materials, who is it that we serve? And, I've made an effort to say, we want you here, we want everyone here, but to give a sense of the kinds of patrons that have found our collections useful, that come back again and again. Obviously, students working on school projects or school papers. Other members of BPL staff come and use our collections and use our space all the time. Family genealogists, we're going to talk a little bit more about family genealogy and how we make that accessible in our building in just a bit. But if you're interested in researching more about your house or another building in Brooklyn's history, we actually are having a workshop very soon where it's going to be hands-on, and an expert, the president of the Brooklyn Heights Association, is going to lead you through how to specifically use our collection to research any building in Brooklyn. Historians, authors, journalists, forensic researchers. We sometimes have people come in and like look at old yearbooks to try to solve a cold case, like cold murder cases. That's a real thing that happens in our building. So people are really using our resources for a variety of things, but of course, there's plenty that's not here that people might make use of our collections and might want to come in and explore what it is that we have. So as a public history institution, our collection is really at the heart of everything we do, both collecting and making sure that we have a diversity of stories, that our collection is as representative of Brooklyn as it can be. Obviously, that is a work in progress. Obviously, that is a moving target, but we're always thinking about what stories are we missing? What stories do we have enough of and don't need more of in order to make sure that we're fulfilling our mission of collecting and storytelling Brooklyn's history. So maintaining and adding to and ensuring the relevance of our collection is really at the center, but it's not all that we do. So thinking about the other kinds of services that we offer, education is another really key part of what it is that we offer. So specifically, our education team really focuses their work in using primary sources like the ones that are available in our collection to teach 21st century skills, document-based skills to Brooklyn students. And we really do make an effort to prioritize meeting students where they are, both kind of conceptually, but physically. So most of the work we do in education is going out into Brooklyn classrooms, into the public schools. About 80% of the schools that we serve are Title I schools. They're high needs schools. We go to them and, give the teachers a break and walk into the classrooms and teach students how to use these particular skills, how to dive into topics that are already part of their grade-specific curriculum. So our expert educators are really providing that added degree of service and that added degree of specificity to what is already happening in Brooklyn's classrooms. So that's our Brooklyn Connections program that we do that through. So we're going out into Brooklyn's classrooms. But at the same time, I know I have fond memories of school field trips when I was younger. We also facilitate ways for students to come to our building, touch that cannonball, get to handle those documents, learn what it is to visit an archive, so that should they want to become a historian or a journalist or another career that involves doing research, that they know what that looks like. They have some experience visiting an archive, that they know what it is to feel welcomed in that kind of space. So we also facilitate programs where students come to our facility, our building, and are guided through what it is to do research in an archive. So we go to them, they come to us. We're also very proud to be the home for New York City History Day. The future of National History Day is a little bit tenuous at the moment, given that they've lost funding recently, but we're good for at least another year. So National History Day is a nationwide program that gets students involved in primary source history research. So it's a national competition. You can think about it like a nationwide science fair, except for history. So students work on performances, they work on documentaries, websites, exhibitions, papers, and in groups and individually, and they pick a topic that they're curious about in history, do a project using original research, engaging primary sources, and then they can compete first at the city level, which is what we're the host of, then at the state level, which is where our New York City History Day students just competed recently up in Oneonta. And then from there, the winners of that statewide competition will go on to the national competition. So New York City History Day involves students from all 5 boroughs. It's a huge undertaking to bring them all under one roof, to have them show their projects, to have them receive feedback from judges, to get to meet and learn from one another as students who are all united in their excitement for history. So we're very proud to be the home of that competition, and very much hope that that National History Day can sustain itself, so that we continue to nurture our students in their love for history and storytelling around it. We're also gearing up for a summer internship where we pay students to come to our building and learn a little bit more about history and produce exhibitions and blog posts and other forms of historical output. So, you know, it's important for students to get hands-on experience, but we don't play with unpaid internships at CBH. If you're going to be here doing history work, we want to pay you for it. So we're in the process now of selecting our final students who will be with us over the summer, participating in that internship. And then finally, the last thing I'll call out for our education program is our professional development. So all of our New York City school teachers are required to have a continuing education requirement to stay on top of best practices, to stay on top of topic-based, content-based study. And so we offer opportunities for those students to come to our building, of course, always free, to learn a little bit more from experts in the field about a particular topic or a particular skill and how to teach it. So we make sure that we're available as a resource for educators as well. I have a quick video here about History Day, but I'm actually going to skip over it for want of time. But I do encourage you, this is available on our website, to hear a little bit more from the students and how fulfilled they feel and how uplifted they feel by participating in History Day and getting to share their work and be taken seriously as young historians.
Dominique, we can post that on the CB14 website.
Wonderful. I would love to do that. I'll be sure to send you the link so that you can take a look at just how, again, fulfilled, but also how very deeply adorable our History Day competitors are. But I also want to highlight, very relevant to anyone on this call, you're already in the habit of using your evenings to learn more, to be civically engaged. Well, I'd love to show you a little bit more of how we do that at the Center for Brooklyn History. We have usually weekly, if not multiple times a week, public programs available for anyone to come to our building and learn either about Brooklyn's history or about topics relevant to Brooklynites. So for instance, just next week, we have, or next week and the following week, I suppose, programs. For instance, you see on your right, a program celebrating a collection that we recently acquired, that was recently donated to our collection, that has to do with Alpha Phi Alpha, the first historically Black fraternity in the United States, specifically the Brooklyn chapter. So a collection of photographs was donated to our collection, and we're using that as an opportunity to teach a little bit more about the history and the importance of Black Greek letter fraternities and sororities. So that'll be Monday after next, where you come in and learn more about that. And then with reference to topics that are interesting or relevant to Brooklynites, we also have a program next week that is looking at the idea of reparations, and specifically taking an international lens. So we just had a program recently where we screened a documentary, a PBS documentary by Yoruba Richin about the case for reparations in the United States. And now we're continuing that conversation with a look at the international fight for reparations using Grenada as a case study. So these are the kinds of events that we host all the time. They're usually in the evening, starting at 6:30, always free, always welcome to all. And we really try to have a variety of events. So sometimes it's a talk, sometimes it's a film screening, sometimes it's hands-on, we're making history collages, or we're doing a trivia night. We really try to mix it up and make sure that there's something for everyone. I know I'm running low on my time, so I'm going to do the very heartbreaking work of shortchanging my own department. So as chief historian, I head up public history, which is really, as you might imagine, at the heart of our institution's mission, bringing history to the public, hence public history. So one way we do that is through exhibitions. And as you can see here from this photos, our exhibitions are kind of integrated into the very furniture, so people can come in, use our great hall, which is pictured here, as just a hangout spot during the day. We're open Monday through Saturday. As I mentioned, you're welcome to come in, use the Wi-Fi, meet a friend, again, scroll your phone, use the bathroom. But even if you're just dropping by in our great hall, there is history content there for you to learn from and experience and get a sense of. And as you can see from the photo on the top left, even when our building is closed, we have some exhibition content on the building's exterior, so you can be engaging in Brooklyn history 24 hours a day. And I feel that's the best way to be. That's how I live my life. But also exhibitions continue into specific topics. So I'm delighted to present. So this is Traces, Family History Research and the Legacy of Slavery in Brooklyn, our first kind of public history exhibit since we opened to the public in 2023. As the title suggests, this is not only about the impact of Brooklyn's centuries of slavery, so plantation slavery that takes place in Brooklyn from the 17th century through the 19th century. A lot of people don't know that it existed here in Brooklyn, but it did. This exhibition gives an overview of what that looks like and how we know what we know. So this exhibition, like our Great Hall, is open 6 days a week. And I also lead public tours every Friday at 3 p.m. and one Saturday a month at 2 p.m. So all are welcome. Those dates are available on our website. We encourage you to register just to keep track of numbers, but you're welcome to just show up to any of our tours. And we'd be delighted to have you and explain a little bit more about the topic and how the exhibition came to be. But understanding that not everyone can make it out to our building, we also do our best to bring history out to the people. So what you're looking at now is a pop-up exhibition that we just opened at the Euclid Avenue subway station. So that's the last line on the C, last stop on the C, and then the 8 keeps going. So this is a stop that's in East New York. So we collected some of our materials in our collection about East New York's history and put it as a pop-up in the subway stations so that the thousands of people commuting back and forth can have a moment, stop, read about the history, and carry on with their day. So our vision of public history is very much about meeting people wherever they are and doing what we can to bring them history, bring them access to our collections. And then finally, welcome services. I've mentioned our Great Hall and how we welcome people into the building. So not only does that look like a spot to just hang out during the day, 6 days a week, but we also do have a gift shop. So if you want to pick up a gift for someone visiting out of town, or you're heading out of town and want a Brooklyn onesie for your new niece or nephew, that's definitely something you can do at our shop, as well as pick up some Brooklyn Public Library merchandise. Ours is the only gift shop across the Brooklyn Public Library system. So, you know, if you want to buy some jewelry inspired by our beautiful building on Grand Army Plaza, here's a great place to do it. But of course, we understand that not everyone can or wants to drop money. So what you're looking at on the right-hand side is our community corner, where we always have free giveaways. So everyone can leave with something, even if it's a pen or a little fidget toy or a coloring book that they can work on while they're there or take home with them. We really just want to reiterate that we're a place for everyone, whether you're doing research, whether you're you know, on a break from jury duty and need a quiet place to stop and just hang out for a bit. If you want to meet a friend, if you want to take in an exhibition, if you want to meet fellow Brooklynites at one of our public programs, or send a educator or student who's interested in learning more about Brooklyn, we're kind of your one-stop shop for doing all of that. Everything we do is free, all are welcome. So we just want to get the word out that we're here to answer all of your Brooklyn curiosities, provide some resources, and really be a hub for individuals who are interested in researching more of Brooklyn's history. So I think I'm reaching the end of my allotted time, so I'm going to stop sharing now and turn it back over to our meeting leaders.
Thank you, Dominique. That was fantastic. And you are a gem, in my humble opinion. And I'm very excited about the Center for Brooklyn History. I've known about that building downtown, I don't know, forever. Never, thought to go in there. My guide to Brooklyn history is Ron Schweiger. I'm sure you probably know Ron. And so it's great. Does anyone have a question? Let's not go too long. Anybody raise their hand?
Yeah, Sean.
I have. What's that?
Oh, I see Sean's hand up, but go ahead, Joel.
I'm just curious. You can say one way or the other whether you can say this, but I'm wondering whether the evil of Donald Trump has filtered its way down to affecting your program at all.
Well, certainly, everyone who's involved in history and especially public history is, in a worried state right now. History and making it accessible, all of that is kind of very much had some challenges as of recently. We're very lucky that as a public library, we get the majority of our funding from the city and the state. And so far, those streams of our budget have not been affected. But of course, we are part of a larger field. So whether that's applying for grants that can fund exhibitions, like from the National Endowment for the Humanities or from the Institute for Museum and Library Services, both of which have been, cut very recently and that we had, open applications for, certainly limit what the kinds of funding that are available to us, our Humanities New York and the other state humanities councils. So, it's definitely a challenging time, but as you can see from my presentation, our job is to just take what we have and using the resources we have, make it accessible. So when we have tons of resources, there's tons that we can do, but even when we have very few resources, we're still going to use them to try to make our collections and our interpretation as accessible as possible. That's not going to change. And so we're very grateful for the funding we have, other people who are in a place to give and want to contribute to what it is that we're doing, private sources of funding. So at the moment, we can keep fulfilling our mission, but we're weathering the challenges and also trying to support our colleagues in the field who have seen more significant challenges to their ability to function, keep maintaining their staff, fulfilling their commitments. So it's a tenuous time, but we're very lucky to have the support of the wider Brooklyn Public Library system and the city, who I think cares a lot about its libraries and cares a lot about its history. So I'm hoping that means we're still able to continue bringing history to the people despite what the federal landscape looks like.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. It will pass. Sean, you wanted to ask a question?
Yeah, I just was, thank you very much for the presentation. It was a wealth of knowledge packed into 30 minutes. And, we'll revisit some of those topics through some of our offerings and on our website. My question is kind of on the acquisition or the curating side. What if, and I'm thinking specifically about, historically significant projects in our own district. I'm thinking Newkirk Plaza, which is something that for 30 years it was, I've got documents in a folder from 1898, transferring the property to do the Brighton Line cut. It's America's first open air mall. And we've been working really for more than 2 decades to get it into the public domain. There's a great stuff on our website. A local historian helped put things together. So something like that. Or the other thing I thought of is, of course, the enslaved Africans burial ground that's being developed by Parks as a memorial in our district. How do things that are happening in real time get picked up or exhibited or utilized by the center, if at all?
That's an excellent question. So the answer kind of in a general way is we try to the extent that we can, take things on case by case. So I'm happy to put it in the chat or send it to you afterwards. But CBH reference at bklynlibrary.org. We have very long email addresses at BPL. It's just the one-stop shop for just making the initial ask. Here's what we have, or here's what we're interested in. We'd be interested in having a conversation, and things go from there. Sometimes that's how something enters in our collection. Sometimes we do an event and that we have a conversation with someone and it leads to that being a donation. We recently tabled at Jackie Robinson Day at the site of one of his residences in Brooklyn, and someone offhand mentioned that they have all the records from the renaming of the street, and we brought that into our collection. So we're still able to kind of handle things case by case, and as long as it has to do with Brooklyn's history, which is, you know, our area of specialization and where we limit things to. And as long as it's not redundant to something that we already have in our collection, we're always open to that conversation of either acquiring it and bringing it into our collection, or without getting too deep into it and taking too much time, we're very big believers in a concept called post-custodial care, which is, you know, in a nutshell, we're very glad to have things in our collection to offer to Brooklynites, but we're not the best place for everything. You know, beloved family heirlooms should be in someone's family. We don't want it to be in our building away from the people who it's most meaningful for. So post-custodial care can look like digitizing something so that it's digitally in our collection, the original stay with the family, or providing resources on how to care for an object. Well, oh, maybe this doesn't make sense in our collection, but here's how we recommend you use acid-free paper or digitizing kit or what have you to make sure it's safe in your collection. So whether that's bringing things in or providing help on how you can best preserve and steward what it is that you have, we kind of, again, case by case, do as much as we can to make sure that the history is preserved and that if it makes sense for us to have it, that we have it, and make sure that consent is signed away and that everyone's comfortable with wherever it is that we land.
Very cool. Thank you.
I think that's it. I don't see any more hands. Thanks so much, Dominique. We will see you downtown.
Oh, wonderful. Please do come visit. And I'm happy to stay on, but also if I need to jump, I can just.
Yeah, you're welcome to stay. You're welcome to reclaim your time at any time.
Okay, perfect. And if there are any questions, of course, I'm happy to have my info shared to answer them.
Many thanks.
So we have our next guest tonight, Drasana Hughes from the Department of Environmental Protection, and we're going to talk about flooding. We've had some other presentations on flooding. I feel like the borough's washing away. So the floor is yours, Drasana.
Okay, great. Yeah, sorry about earlier. Happy to be on now. Nice to meet everyone. My name is Drasana Hughes. I'm the Brooklyn Borough Commissioner for DEP. So I have quite a lot of slides, but what I've found is best is I'm going to speed through them, like just assuming folks know a lot about their neighborhoods and where they live. And like you guys said, you've had a lot of flooding presentations, but then definitely want to answer any questions, definitely want to get into areas of the presentation that you find helpful. So hopefully this is a good way to do it. I should be sharing now.
Yep, you're.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
We can see my screen?
Very good.
Yep.
Okay, great. Awesome. So we just start the presentation off by saying something a lot of folks don't know, which is that New York City has been reclassified as humid subtropical. That's the same classification for cities like Houston and Atlanta. And a lot of New York City infrastructure, as you all can imagine, 50, 60, 70 years ago, was not planned for a climate of Houston or Atlanta. So we at DEP are really paying close attention to how we can plan for climate change, for the fact that New York will continue to have more and more intense rainfall and will have sea level rise. In this presentation, I'm going to talk about 3 types of flooding. So one is stormwater, pretty self-explanatory, that it comes from the sky when there's a rainstorm. 2 is coastal flooding, so flooding that can come from coastal communities. And then 3 is groundwater, and what that means is everyone in New York City, we are on a water table. Depending on where you are, your water table is higher or lower. And all these things can be exacerbated by flooding and can contribute to flooding in your home and in your neighborhood. So another reason to personally understand why flooding can be a nuisance is to understand our sewer system. So 60% of New York City, and I believe most of Community Board 14, has combined sewers. So what does that mean? That means the same place that water, when you flush your toilet, when you wash your hands in the sink, when you do your washer or dryer, that goes to the exact same place as water from a storm that goes into a catch basin on the street. Now, normally when we're not having a storm, this is not a difference you would notice. It's like having a combined sewer versus a separate sewer is not something you would notice. But when you have a storm, especially storms that are intense and challenge the sewer capacity, you can get a backup into your home, or we can get flooded streets that are not only carrying stormwater, so not only water from the storm, but also wastewater. And that can be very uncomfortable for lots of reasons. And we'll talk about some ways that you can mitigate that as a homeowner and what the city is also doing to lessen sewer backups. So first, I just wanted to talk about and kind of pitch flood mapping. So you can look up New York City stormwater maps, and we encourage everybody to look up their home. Like you can get, this is a zoomed out vision, but you can get granular down to your street and see if the way the land is, the way groundwater tables are in your neighborhood kind of lend yourselves to these hot spots of flooding. Now, these aren't the only areas that flood, obviously. For example, if you live near Prospect Park and you get runoff from the park, that wouldn't necessarily show up on this map. The map is just showing areas in the land that lend themselves to flooding. But I found this useful looking at my block, seeing how close I was to hot spots. And so it's something that we encourage everyone to do. And I'm happy to send that link over to Sean and everyone else to look up their area. So now I'm just going to go through what the city is doing to mitigate flooding. We talk about gray, green, and blue infrastructure, and then also what we're doing to regulate flooding in real time and how we think that's going to help us kind of have a better response. So first, gray infrastructure is just a fancy word for sewers. And the sewers work and protect us in 98% of rain events. So a lot of the rain events we remember naturally are those where the sewer was not able to do all of the work, but it's so important that we protect our sewers and that we invest in our sewers because they really are the first line of defense. A lot of the storms I showed you where there's backups on the first page, we're talking about storms in excess of 2 inches an hour. So for storms that are less than that, we want to make sure that the sewers are not overwhelmed, and the DEP's 10-year capital plan includes $8 billion in upgrades because even though the sewers handle 98% of events, we want them to handle 99. You know, we want them to handle the increased rain capacity it's coming from storms. So there are over 100 sewer projects in the next 5 years and more counting. The second is green infrastructure. And so the first one I'm going to talk about is rain gardens, which you can see here up on the left, and you may see these walking through New York City. DEP installed a lot of these over the past 10 years to help manage stormwater. Rain gardens are great because stormwater goes into the garden before it goes to the sewer. So they actually help pre-sewer to make sure that the sewer is free and has drainage capacity when there's a storm. And we are continuing to build a lot of these throughout Brooklyn. The second is porous pavement. And I have a little video of how it works. I'm just going to play quickly. Basically, it's special roadway paving that actually takes in stormwater. So you'll notice here that it's the water is soaking into the pavement as opposed to normal concrete where that can sometimes exacerbate flooding or do nothing. And we're adding a lot of miles into both the Bronx and Brooklyn, a porous pavement. So this is a map of green infrastructure in CB14. It's not perfect, but I just took a screenshot. The blue is where we are planning to install porous pavement, starting in very late 2025, early 2026. And so that's very exciting for the area. Some of it you saw on the flood maps for areas that flood frequently. And so that's great that this community board can get some of that green infrastructure starting quite soon. The next, I talked about how we can regulate flooding in real time. And so FloodNet sensors are sensors that we have input all over the city in certain areas where flooding is frequent. Why this is good is, usually now, not always, but let's say there's flooding in an area and it may not be obvious, or it may have come on with a really quick rainstorm. You might have to call 311 or call your community board, and then they call me, and then I call the ops team. But if we have these sensors, we can see in real time where flooding is happening and respond accordingly. And you can see where the flood sensors are located if you go to floodnet.nyc. And I took a quick screenshot here. So it looks like there's 3 that are giving active data, 1 that we're working on fixing in the community board. They say 0 because I took this screenshot today when it wasn't raining. But these are some areas, just so you know, when you walk by, where there are FloodNet sensors in your own community board. The last thing I want to talk about was the unified stormwater rule, which some folks don't know about. But in 2022, DEP increased the amount of stormwater that new and redeveloped properties must manage on site. So I know everybody in New York City sees that we have lots of new development every day. And this is a great opportunity enforcing this rule to make sure that all of these new developments are managing stormwater and taking in stormwater as much as they're, a lot of these developers are getting a lot from the city, and so that they give us back something in terms of an environmental protection resource. And so this is a green roof that you see on top of a new building, and that can help manage, gallons and gallons of stormwater before it hits the sewer. So now I'm going to go into the final portion of the presentation where I just talk about what you can do as a homeowner to protect your home from flooding, and then some asks we have as DEP of the public that you can help us as a city, as we work together as a community to kind of combat climate change and protect our communities from flooding. So first is, if you convert your basement or you're doing any plumbing in your basement, just to make sure of these 3 things. 1 is your bathroom fixtures should not be located lower than your sewer connection. So having your toilet or your sink or your bathtub lower than where your sewer is connected can result in raw sewage backing up into those drains before they go into the sewer connection. So just, if you're remodeling your basement, if you're getting frequent sewer backups, that's something we recommend. 2, if your basement's located at the bottom of a slope, sidewalk level to the basement doors is going to be prone to flooding and groundwater flooding. And then having exit routes on both sides of your basement and not having bars on your windows is very important. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of very sad stories in New York City and in Brooklyn, people with incorrect basements, and then flooding happens quickly. If you're asleep, it can be a dangerous situation. The second is rerouting your downspouts. So you can see on the left, that's an improper installation of downspouts, whereas on the right is proper. So just keep the sewer water out of your house as much as possible, as opposed to going all the way through your bathroom and your basement, just making sure downspouts lead outwards. 3, you can get these at any hardware store. Rain barrels, they connect to your gutter. And so if there's a heavy storm, the rain barrel will collect water first before it goes out into the environment and then into the sewer. This is cool because, like, if you have plants, like anything that you would use rainwater for, you can use it. You don't want to drink this, but you can use it for plants and collecting water, and it helps the city, right? If every homeowner had a rain barrel, we would keep gallons and gallons and gallons of water out of the sewer before it hit capacity. 2 is flood sensors. So, like, let's say you sleep on the 2nd floor, you flood in the basement. This is my boss's flood sensor. It beeps and it tells her when she is getting flooding, if she needs to move belongings or call 311. It's better than, going down 8 hours later and seeing damage. So we recommend getting that. You can get that at a hardware store. And then also flood barriers. These can be filled with sand or water. And as you saw on the first slide, some of these storms we're talking about, a difference between 0.1 of an inch per hour. That's the difference between a sewer backup and not, or flooding and not. So these can be great to put in front of doors before or during a storm. And then sump pumps. If you flood frequently, these detect rising water and push it out. to a pit or a drain. And you can also get these at a hardware store. So final part, these are just some asks from DEP, ways that you can make it easier on your neighbors and the city. One is if there's a heavy rainstorm, it's like maybe not the best time to do 5 loads of laundry and wash 10 loads of dishes, because as I explained before, we have a combined sewer, so that puts pressure on the system at the same time as the storm. So if you can wait to do some things, that's really great. It's great for everybody else, and it helps reduce strain on the system. 2, the city spends $18 million a year because people flush the wrong things down the toilet. And when you see DEP in the street, tearing up the street, going through the sewer, these are things we have to do sometimes because of damage caused by individuals. So, I mean, I didn't know this before taking this job, but there's no such thing as a flushable wipe. You'll see them, they'll try to sell them in Duane Reade and CVS. They say flushable. They're always lying. So you should really only put the things you're supposed to put in the toilet, and that's it. The last thing is, I don't know if folks saw this November, but we issued a drought warning, and there were fires in Prospect Park. It was the first drought warning issued in New York City in over 20 years. So just because we have extreme storms, climate change also brings periods of drought. So making sure you're conserving water is very important. And those of you who pay a water bill, that's also important personally for your water bill. So we're really trying to raise awareness about water conservation. Last few tips and tricks. You can download this app from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association, which will tell you when rainfall is greater than 1.52 inches an hour, so you can see that ahead of time. I have the app. I find it interesting, even though I live more inland in Brooklyn. I find it interesting. 2, making sure you have flood insurance is available for homeowners, renters, and businesses, and they can insure you sometimes up to $50,000. So this is the difference between getting all your stuff replaced or having some major life expenditures, and we really recommend it at DEP. There's other types of insurance to get. So this is my boss's sewer backup in her bathtub in Red Hook. And, her homeowner's insurance does not cover a sewer backup, but there is an optional rider on her policy to cover damages. So if you should check for those optional riders, and also make sure you're insuring your sewer service line, because if through no fault of your own, something could happen. Insurance really lowers the cost there. And lastly, we just recommend you sign up for Notify NYC. This is the great way to get emergency information immediately. Sometimes they have it as fast as I do. So wherever your social media of choice, we really recommend signing up for it. And then this is DEP's information. This is the way to reach us at DEP. Also, Community Board 14 has my information, and they know how to reach me as well. So I'll stop there, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions?
Steve
Yes, I
Cohen
see
has
Steve
hand up.
Cohen's here. He's got. Can't hear you, Steve.
Hi,
There you go.
can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah, I have it's less about flooding, but since you brought up the accessing the water account, so I know that like water bills went up like sometime over the last year. I had seen that, but like mine like basically skyrocketed over the last year, like going from like something reasonable to like hundreds of dollars a month for various months. So just in regard to that, like I feel like National Grid has offered programs before where they can assess like, if your energy, like they can come to your house and assess like whether, you're probably using energy and give you tips for ways to lower your heat bill. Is there anything like that from the DEP on the water front in terms of seeing like what's going on in terms of, usage being, totally out of whack and what's causing it? Thanks.
Yeah, no, look, I will say this just as someone in this job, like sometimes it is a problem that's the city's fault, and like you should flag that ASAP. Sometimes it's a leak in your house before it even reaches your home, right? It could be a leak from the your sewer service line to the city main line. So it definitely shouldn't be a thing that like, oh, the city raised the water bill. Like if it's alarmingly high, like please send it to Sean. Sean will send it to me, and I will chase down for you. And we'll have an inspector come out and see, because I've seen everything under the sun. I've seen it's the users like usage. It's something weird with the city line. It's something weird with the meter. It's something weird with the ADU. So definitely don't feel like not empowered to say something. Like please reach out. And I'm happy to chase down what's happening with your particular situation.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that.
I would say you should compare, the bills over a couple of years to see if your usage changed. Rates change, but if your usage changed, and that might, like Desana said, there could be a leak or something.
We do have a leak forgiveness plan. So let's say we find it's a leak, then you apply for that, and DEP has leak forgiveness. So your bills will adjust the bills for leak issues. And then obviously if it's a DEP issue also, that's something different. But definitely check it out. Like you definitely want to ask questions about it. Yeah.
Is nothing but responsive on this and always gets an answer. So definitely follow up.
Nina, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. So my house in a particular section, which is met with the driveway. It's a shared driveway, and I've noticed that the last, year or so, when we've had these really heavy rains, I'm getting actually leaking coming down the inside wall on the stairs that go to the basement. It's not a huge amount. I don't have like a flooded basement, but water is coming through, which of course is worrisome because it can, damages the foundation. I tried a few things. I did like an exterior kind of a caulking mix and so forth, but I found myself thinking, gee, permeable cement, at least in that section, is that something that private homeowners can do? Is it astronomically expensive, and is it advisable?
It is something private homeowners can do. It is significantly more expensive than normal concrete. I don't know enough to like quote you on exactly what it is, but I've met a few homeowners that have installed their own porous pavement. So I know that it is a thing that can be done. And I would have to know a little bit more about your specific situation to recommend it or not, but it's something that people have done. It's something people have done, and I think DEP doing it all over the city has inspired others to look into it and figure out if it's good for them.
Okay.
I would say two things though, Nina. I assume, I hope you got to clean your gutters, especially at the end of the fall, all the leaves. And I'll tell you another thing that the great Al Ubell told me when he inspected my house. He said to me, I had some water damage in the basement. He said, you have to clean your traps, and you need a drain guy, like a Roto-Rooter type guy, to make sure that the water is going through, that your traps are clear. The traps are like the U underneath the sink. Those pipes. There's like a U pipe.
Yeah.
Your basement has traps below ground, and the water drains through the traps and out to the waste pipe out to the street, and you have to make sure those traps are clear.
Well, okay, so this is like, really clear, seems to be external, that if the rain is heavy enough, I've noticed that just that one section of driveway, and it looks to me like it's almost sort of very slightly canted, toward the house rather than toward the center of the driveway. And so that allows the water to pool, and then it kind of works its way in.
Nina, I'm going to jump in too, because this could possibly be something for the Department of Transportation to look into, whether or not you have a ponding issue at that location. So I'll work to coordinate with DOT and DEP to, do a ponding inspection. I think I have to wait 5 or 7 days after it the next big rain, but I'll work with you on that.
Okay,
We'll see
I
if we
would
can
appreciate it
come to
because
any
I'm
conclusion.
trying to get all these things in line. And you talked about sewers. I just and plumbing and everything. I just spent $5,000 breathtaking dollars on plumbing, including replacing lines, only to discover that something that was hidden by shelving and so forth is probably going to be another 2 or 3,000 in sewer line. Like half of it apparently was replaced and half wasn't, and I'm just like, oh my God, this is why I'm working again this summer. Now I have 4 jobs. It's like,
Well,
you know.
we'll follow up to see, to
But
make sure
thank
this
you.
next one doesn't become sure. And then Joel, if I may, since I'm already talking,
Go for
I
it.
had a question too. So Giuseppe, you probably know some of this, but when Joel said we've talked about flooding before, just to, for context, we've had DEP with us before to talk about rainfall ready and cloud burst management. We've had FloodNet, we've had Metro Flood Defense. We had a Fund for the City of New York Planning fellow do a work with us. We had DPR present on Lakeshore Blue Infrastructure. We also had a presentation on the Gravesend Tributary Project, which actually has already started in our district. Not the laying of the porous pavement, but the lowering of the national grid infrastructure is already going on for that. And so we're really focused on this and wanting to make our district less prone to flooding. So 2 questions on that. One is, I didn't hear you mention backflow valves, and I'm wondering if that's still a recommendation that DEP is making. And the other question is more community-wide, is we have requested bioswales, rain gardens, and there has been some boring tests done in the northern part of the district. And so my question on bioswales is, how come we don't have any yet? Can we have them when, please?
Okay, I will definitely ask about the backflow valves. I don't know on that if we're still recommending that, why or why not. So I'll get back to you about backflow valves. For rain gardens, my understanding is there's a lot going into where we can put a rain garden, including history of flooding in the area, how elevated you are, and the underlying utilities. Whereas porous pavement is a lot easier. Like we don't need to do all of that background. Like we kind of know where we can put it. I can confirm with you that it's true that we can't put any more rain gardens in CB14 for XYZ reason, but I don't want to say that until I know that that's actually true. And I can get some background there, but I know it's a lot. There's like rain gardens and biospills are a lot harder to request and say yes to, and we don't really respond in that way. We have to proactively figure out where they're allowed to go.
Okay, I understand that. I have a suspicion that we're very clay, that we have a lot of clay up north. But
it could be the
yeah.
park too, like the park where you are in reference to the park is a whole thing. It could be where you are in reference to the coast. Like I'm not, I don't come into this with a very, very, very strong environmental planning background. So I'm also still learning, new to the role, but I have seen that be all considerations that can prevent them from being put somewhere.
And one last follow-up question, because as we talk about the expansion of porous pavement, are you aware of a maintenance contract that has been let to maintain the porous pavement once it has poured? Because that's a warning that we've gotten from Metro Flood Defense, is that, it's going to get clogged and it needs a certain type of maintenance, and there's no contract in place yet.
I don't know. I will ask. I'll ask what the plans are. I'll ask if existing porous pavement has contracts, so we know what we've done in the past, and I'll ask what the plans are for your guys.
Appreciate all of the above. Thanks.
That's all very interesting. All right. Anybody else? Any more questions? That was a really excellent presentation.
Super good.
Crisp.
Try to be efficient.
So I don't think so. I think we're all set. And
Just on,
next
then let
time,
me just add thanks for the presentation, but also all of the support you give my office so responsively and thoroughly. Thank you to you and Denise Hubbard. Shiros, thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'll definitely let Denise know.
Next month, we're having Noah about the Ark. No.
I was like,
I got to laugh at us, Sean. All right. With that said, the meeting's over. Thank you, everybody who attended, who contributed, and to our presenters, Dominique and Drasanna. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Great
All right,
evening.
everybody have a good
Very
evening.
worthwhile. Thank you, Joel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye
Well
bye.
done, Joel. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye bye.